All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving headfirst into some ancient law.
We're talking really ancient.
Deuteronomy, to be exact, chapters 13 through 15. These laws, they were written thousands of years ago for the Israelites.
Yeah, and let me tell you, they were serious business back then.
No kidding. We're talking about a whole different world, a whole different way of life.
Right, and to really wrap our heads around it, we got to remember the historical context. This was a newly formed nation, surrounded by these massive empires with completely different beliefs and ways of life.
So the pressure's on. They're trying to build a society from scratch.
Exactly. And that leads us straight into Deuteronomy chapter 13, which tackles a huge issue head-on, idolatry.
Okay, so worshiping other gods. Big no-no, right?
Yeah, you could say that again. Deuteronomy 13 doesn't mess around. It opens with this, really powerful declaration. If there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams.
Prophets, dream interpreters. I'm already hooked. What happens next?
So if this prophet or dreamer tries to lead people astray, right, to worship other gods, the text is crystal clear. They are to be put to death.
Whoa. Okay, so they weren't messing around.
Nope. And it didn't matter if they were your best friend, your brother, your own child. Loyalty to God came first.
Wow. That's intense. Talk about taking your beliefs seriously.
Right. It really highlights just how central their belief system was to their entire worldview, almost like a matter of national security or something.
It's like they saw these other gods as this, cultural kryptonite.
That's a great way to put it. And the text really reflects that fear, this sense of urgency to protect their way of life. They had just escaped centuries of slavery in Egypt, and they were determined to forge their own path, which meant strict adherence to their beliefs.
So how did that actually play out in their daily lives? What was the role of, family and community in all of this?
Yeah, talk about high stakes, right? It's like their whole belief system rested on the choices people made.
Absolutely. And you can really see that weight even when it comes to things you might not expect, like, say, what they were allowed to eat.
Okay, so from life and death to lunchtime.
You got it. Deuteronomy 14. That's where things take a bit of a culinary turn.
All right, well, knowing what we've already covered, I'm guessing even food wasn't exactly a light topic for them. You're catching on. Deuteronomy 14, it gets into a lot of detail about what was considered clean and unclean to eat. I mean, they really lay it all out there, like the deer, the gazelle, the roebuck, the wild goat, the ibex, the antelope, and the mountain sheep. These you may eat.
Wow. Okay, so they really weren't messing around with the menu, huh? It's like they were writing a cookbook for a very specific audience.
Right. But this wasn't just about personal preference, of course. For the Israelites, these distinctions about food were tied to something much bigger. It was about holiness, their relationship with God.
Yeah.
All that.
Oh, so more than just picky eaters then.
Way more. It's about this idea of purity, right? Certain animals were considered clean because, in their minds, these animals represented things that aligned with their beliefs.
Things like
Well, like living on land and water or chewing the cud. Those were like outward signs that, to them, reflected something deeper, something spiritual.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if your entire world is built around this covenant with God, it makes sense that something as basic as your diet would reflect that. But were there
Exactly. And it shows how interconnected everything was for them. Their beliefs, their everyday lives, their understanding of nature, everything went back to that covenant.
Which brings us to another interesting aspect of communal responsibility in Deuteronomy 14, tithing.
Right. So while those dietary laws, they were all about personal purity, tithing had a different focus. It was about taking care of the community as a whole.
It's amazing how these ideas of personal responsibility and taking care of the community, they were so deeply woven into their laws.
It really is. And that brings us to what might be the most, radical concept in Deuteronomy 15. We're talking about the sabbatical year and the year of Jubilee.
Okay, you're going to have to break this down for me. What was that all about?
So imagine this. Every seventh year, all debts were forgiven. A clean slate, just like that.
Whoa. Hold on. Everyone just got to hit the reset button every 7 years.
Well, not everyone. The way it's written, it seems like this mainly applied to debts between individuals, not necessarily those owed to, say, temples or institutions.
So it was more about fairness within the community then.
Exactly. It was about preventing those cycles of debt from becoming so crushing that they basically destroyed people's lives. And then every 50 years, that was the year of Jubilee. And that took things even further.
Okay, Jubilee year, lay it on me. What happened then?
Okay, so during the Jubilee year, any land that had been sold because of poverty was returned to its original owners. People who had been forced into servitude because of debt, were set free. It was a complete reset designed to prevent extreme inequality.
Wow. Okay, now that's what I call radical. You're telling me they built a system to redistribute wealth and land every 50 years.
It's a remarkable concept, really, and it's rooted in this idea that everyone deserves a chance to thrive, that no one should be trapped in poverty forever because of some misfortune. They saw the land itself as belonging to God, and they were just caretakers entrusted with it for a time.
It makes you wonder how smoothly those transitions actually went, though, right? Talk about a shakeup every 50 years.
Oh, definitely. It definitely raises more questions than it answers.
Yeah.
But I think what's most interesting is this. Even if people were in debt because of their own choices, even then, there was this emphasis on generosity and compassion.
It's this idea that you have a responsibility to help those in need, not because they somehow earned it or deserve it, but simply because it's the right thing to do.
And it goes deeper than that. They were commanded to remember their own experience of slavery in Egypt. That was supposed to be their motivation for empathy and generosity.
Wow, that's powerful. To connect your own struggles with the struggles of others and to let that drive your actions. It's a reminder that compassion shouldn't depend on someone's social status or whether they have a lot of money or not.
It's a timeless message, isn't it? And it's one that still resonates thousands of years later.
Absolutely. So we've gone from these very strict laws about worshiping only one God to all these details about food, and now to these radical ideas about economic justice. It really shows that Deuteronomy, it wasn't just some random rule book. It was like a blueprint for how they believe society should be built, one based on faith, justice, and compassion.
Precisely. And while we might not agree with or even fully grasp every single detail of these ancient laws, I think they give us this fascinating glimpse into another time, a culture grappling with these big, timeless questions about faith, identity, how we build a just society. They were wrestling with a lot of the same things we're still wrestling with today.
It makes you think, what lessons can we take from these ancient texts? What can they teach us about building a more just and compassionate world, even now? And maybe even more importantly, what questions do they raise for you? What are you curious about now? As always, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deeper into history with us. Until next time.
Welcome to Charlie and Mia's podcast. We're embarking on an exciting journey to read through the entire Bible in just 1 year. Every day, we dive into Scripture, exploring its meanings and how it applies to our lives today. We invite you to join us on this incredible adventure of learning and discovery. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode.